Sometimes the loudest decisions are made in silence. That is precisely the way in which this fascinating story first unfolded. So let us begin our journey by watching it together right now. 300 miles from home, I stood in front of an old weather-beaten cabin, carrying nothing but a backpack. Car doors slammed shut behind me. This was where my wife's family thought their joke would end. They were wrong. It all started 6 months ago, when my wife brought up the annual family trip. Every year, her relatives would gather at a remote cabin for what they called bonding time. I had managed to avoid it for 3 years in a row, always citing work deadlines or other commitments. This year was different. She insisted that I go. She said her parents had specifically asked for me. They really want to get to know you better, she said, looking at me with those innocent eyes that were so hard to refuse. It means a lot to me, so I agreed, but that was my mistake. The trip felt strange from the very beginning. Usually, her family was loud and chaotic on the road. This time, they only exchanged glances in the rearview mirror. Her brother whispered something to his sister, and they giggled quietly. The parents filled the silence with strained conversations about the weather and gas prices. I should have trusted my intuition back when her father asked me several times if I had packed enough clothes for a long stay. When I asked what he meant, he just laughed. You never know what might happen out there. The cabin stood in the middle of 40 acres of almost complete emptiness. No cell service, no neighbors for miles around, just trees and a dirt road that disappeared into the forest. This place had been in their family for decades, passed down from their grandfather on their father's side, who apparently preferred solitude over people. As we were unloading the car, I noticed something else. They had brought significantly more supplies than usual. Several coolers, extra blankets. There was enough food for 2 weeks, not just a regular weekend. When I pointed this out, her mother smiled and said they just wanted to be prepared for anything. The first evening was strange as well. During dinner, the conversation would stop every time I entered the room. Her father kept looking at his watch as if he was waiting for some kind of signal. Her brother couldn't look me in the eye without smiling. It seemed like the whole family was sharing some private joke, and I was the butt of it. Later that night, as we were going to bed, I heard whispering behind the wall. Soft voices were talking about the morning, about making sure I didn't suspect anything. I kept telling myself I was just overthinking it. These people had welcomed me into their family. They'd treated me well for years. Surely I was just imagining things.
The next morning proved I wasn't nearly paranoid enough. I woke up to the sound of engines starting. When I stepped outside, the family was already dressed and loading their cars. I asked what was going on. They exchanged those same looks. Her father stepped forward, wearing that forced smile again. "We've decided to head back early," he said. "Work stuff. You know how it is." A knot formed in my stomach. "Okay, let me grab my things." That's when her brother burst out laughing. Not a polite laugh, a full, uncontrollable laugh. Her sister joined in. Then her mother. Soon, everyone was laughing except my wife, who stared at the ground, her face tight with guilt. "What's so funny?" I asked. Her father cleared his throat, still smiling. "The thing is, you're not coming with us." The words didn't sink in right away. "What do you mean?" "We're leaving you here." Her mother said it casually, like she was announcing dessert. "For a week. Maybe 2. Depends on how long it takes you to figure things out." My wife finally looked up. "It's just a test," she said quietly. "My family thinks you've had things too easy. They want you to prove yourself, to see if you can handle real adversity." The cruelty of it hit me all at once. They'd planned this from the start, an elaborate setup just to abandon me in the middle of nowhere, like some twisted survival experiment. All those whispered conversations, the extra supplies they packed for themselves, those forced smiles, it had all been leading to this moment. "You're joking," I said, though it was obvious they weren't. Her brother pulled out his phone and started filming. "We want to document your reaction for the family," he said. "Don't worry," her sister added, trying to sound helpful. "There's enough food in the cabin for about 4 days. After that, you'll need to get creative. There's a stream about half a mile north for water. And we left you a few basic tools in case you want to try hunting or fishing," she added with a cheerful tone, like this was all completely normal. They honestly thought I'd beg. I could see it in their faces, the anticipation. They were waiting for the moment I'd break down, plead with them to stay, prove them right. To them, I was soft, dependent, someone who couldn't handle the real world. Instead, I walked up to the porch and sat down on the steps. "That's it?" her father asked, clearly disappointed by the lack of drama. "What were you expecting?" I asked. "Some kind of fight, maybe some anger," her brother said, still filming. "This was supposed to be a turning point for you." I looked at my wife. She couldn't even meet my eyes. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. "About 6 months," she said quietly. "Ever since Dad said you seemed too comfortable, like everything just comes easy for you." 6 months of lies. 6 months of family dinners, birthday parties, casual conversations, all while they were secretly planning to humiliate me like this, like it was some kind of group project. I stood up, dusted off my jeans. "Well, you better get going. It'll be dark soon." They exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't how the scene was supposed to go. "You're not going to try to stop us?" her mother asked. "Why would I?" Still waiting for some emotional breakdown, they climbed into their cars. Her brother kept recording, clearly hoping for the shot of me chasing after them, begging like a kicked puppy. I just waved from the porch. Their taillights disappeared down the dirt road, leaving behind a trail of dust and a silence that should have rattled me, but didn't. Instead of panic, I felt something far more dangerous: relief. The silence wasn't awkward. It was complete. The kind of quiet I hadn't experienced in years. No background conversations, no TV in the next room, no buzzing phone. Just me, and 40 acres of wilderness. I went back inside the cabin to take stock of what I had. They said the food would last 4 days, but that assumed I kept eating the way I normally did. There were canned goods, a loaf of bread, some dry staples, a manual can opener, a few utensils, a box of matches, and a basic first aid kit. They'd even left me a hunting knife, probably thinking I'd hurt myself trying to carve a stick. Turns out, the cabin was more solid than I thought. Sturdy wood, a real stone fireplace, and an old hand-pumped well in the kitchen that still gave out clean water. It had clearly been built by people who knew how to live off the grid, back when that was just life, not a lifestyle blog. I found a stack of old journals tucked into a cabinet. Most of them were dull, fishing trips, family arguments, but a few were more useful. Notes on edible plants, good fishing spots, patterns of animal movement. My phone didn't have a signal. I'd expected that. But more importantly, the GPS still worked. So I spent the afternoon exploring. I marked the stream. I found the dirt road that connected to the highway. I started building a map, not just of the land, but of my options. That evening, I built a fire and made a simple meal. As I sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the trees, my phone suddenly buzzed. Turns out, the cabin had a satellite internet connection I hadn't known about. It was a message from my wife. "How are you holding up? Hope you're not too mad about this." I stared at the screen for a long time. The casual tone, like she was asking if I minded a change in dinner plans, not like she'd just abandoned me hundreds of miles from home. I typed back one word: "Fine." An hour later, another message came through. "Dad wants to know if you need anything. There's a town about 15 miles south if you want to walk there." 15 miles. So they had researched the area. They knew exactly how far I'd have to go to find civilization. This wasn't a prank. It was a calculated little experiment designed to wear me down, step by step. I didn't respond. The next morning, I decided to head for that town. But not by walking like some castaway. I spent an hour thoroughly searching the property. And that's when I found it. Tucked behind the cabin under an old tarp was a motorcycle, probably untouched since her grandfather's time. Dusty, rusted in spots, but intact. It took most of the day to get it running. The engine was solid, but the fuel system needed a cleanout, and the battery was dead. Luckily, I'd spent a few years messing around with engines in my 20s. By late afternoon, I had it roaring to life. I rode into town. It was a quiet mountain community mostly built for hunters, fishermen, and the occasional passing tourist. One main street, a general store, a diner, a gas station, and a tiny motel. The kind of place where your name and business get passed around before you finish your first cup of coffee. I walked into the diner and ordered just that, coffee. The waitress, probably in her 50s with streaks of gray in her hair and sharp eyes, sized me up immediately. "You staying up at the old cabin?" she asked. "For now," I replied. "Don't get many visitors this time of year. Most folks wait for hunting season." I gave her a trimmed-down version of my situation. Just said I was staying out there for a few weeks, needed some supplies, and wondered if anyone around town was hiring. Her eyes lit up. "Funny you should ask. We just lost our morning cook. Owner's been scrambling to cover the breakfast shift." Less than an hour later, I was talking to the owner, a no-nonsense guy who cared more about whether I could cook eggs than where I was from. He offered me morning shifts starting the next day. Cash under the table, meals included. That night, I rode back to the cabin with groceries, basic supplies, and a job. My phone lit up with 17 unread messages from my wife and her family. I skimmed the list without opening any of them, watching the tone shift from light concern to growing panic. The last one, from her father, read, "This has gone on long enough. Call us back." I deleted them all and powered off the phone. The next morning, I started my new routine at the diner. The early shift meant getting there by 5 a.m., but I was done by noon and had the rest of the day to myself. The work was simple: eggs, bacon, pancakes, refill the coffee. The regulars were local guys, mostly laborers. They were skeptical at first, but once they realized I wasn't just a city tourist playing dress-up, they warmed up. By the third day, I'd found a rhythm. Work in the morning, explore the woods in the afternoon, then quiet evenings at the cabin, reading through those old journals. The simplicity of it all was strangely addictive. No deadlines, no awkward family dinners, no passive-aggressive tests to prove my worth. That day, my wife called 4 times. On the 4th call, I finally answered. "Thank God," she said. "We've been worried sick. Why haven't you been answering?" "I've been busy." "Busy? You're supposed to be stuck in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do." "I found things to do." There was a long pause on the other end. "What kind of things?" "Does it matter?" "Of course it matters." "This whole thing was supposed to teach you something," she said, "about self-reliance, perseverance. If you're just sitting around feeling sorry for yourself, you're missing the point." The arrogance in her voice was incredible. Even now, she was trying to reframe abandoning me in the middle of nowhere as some sort of life lesson I should be grateful for. "I'm learning plenty," I said. "Good," she replied. "So, when do you want us to come get you? Dad thinks a week is enough to make the point." "I don't." "You don't what?" "I don't want you to come get me." There was a long pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm staying here. Maybe for good." The protests came fast, loud, predictable, and almost rehearsed. I was being overly dramatic. I'd missed the point. I was taking things too seriously. But underneath all that noise, I heard something else. Panic. This wasn't how their little experiment was supposed to end. I hung up and shut off my phone again. That night, I sat by the fire with a book in one hand and a glass of whiskey I'd picked up in town in the other. And that's when it really hit me. Something that probably should have worried me. I wasn't counting down the days until I could leave anymore. I was counting the days since I'd felt this at peace. By the end of my first week at the diner, I'd become a bit of a local curiosity. Word spreads fast in small towns. Everyone knew about the guy from the city who'd been left at the old cabin and decided to stay. What surprised them was how well I was adjusting. The diner owner asked if I'd take on some lunch shifts. A contractor who came in for breakfast mentioned he could use help on a cabin renovation over the weekends. The guy who ran the general store wondered if I could handle inventory on Thursdays. Suddenly, I had more job offers than I ever had back home. My phone stayed off most of the time, but when I did check it, the messages had changed. They'd moved from worry to frustration to full-on anger. Her brother left a voicemail calling me immature. Her mom sent a long message about family loyalty and forgiveness. Her dad? His texts had escalated to threats, saying he'd drive up himself and drag me back to reality. But it was my wife's messages that showed how completely they misunderstood what was happening. "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be," she wrote in one text. "But sulking doesn't solve anything. We can talk about this like adults when you come home." Sulking. That's what she thought this was. 10 days in, I finally called her. "Where have you been?" she snapped as soon as she answered. "Do you have any idea how worried we've been?" "I've been working." "Working? What do you mean?" "I got a job at the local diner. I'm also helping out with some construction on the weekends." The silence on the line stretched out so long, I thought the call dropped. "You got a job?" she finally asked. "You're supposed to be learning a lesson about hardship, not starting some new career." "Maybe I learned a different lesson than the one you had in mind." "This is ridiculous. You're acting like a kid who ran away from home. Pack up and come back. We'll talk about it when you're thinking clearly." I am thinking clearly, probably more clearly than I have in years. What's that supposed to mean? I looked out the window at the mountains glowing in the late sunlight. It means I like it here. The work is real, the people are honest, and nobody plays mind games for fun. We weren't playing games, we were trying to help you grow. By abandoning me in the middle of nowhere? It wasn't a prank, it was a learning experience, and clearly it worked. You're more independent now than you've ever been. The logic was incredible. Even my ability to survive and adapt was being twisted into proof that their cruelty had been helpful. "You're right," I said. "I am more independent, starting with the choice to decide if I want to be part of this family anymore." "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" I hung up and turned off the phone again. That weekend, I helped a local contractor renovate a vacation cabin about 5 miles from where I was staying. The work was tough, hands-on and exhausting, but in a good way. At the end of each day, you could actually see what you'd done. No vague reports, no office politics, just solid walls, leveled floors, and roofs that didn't leak. The contractor, a quiet guy in his 60s with calloused hands and years of experience, worked right alongside me. We didn't talk much. He wasn't the chatty type. But as we wrapped up the project on Sunday afternoon, he finally said something. "You're not bad at this," he told me. "Ever think about learning the trade properly?" "I might be interested," I said. "There's good money in it around here," he added. "City folks keep buying up these old cabins. Most need serious repairs. I've got more projects lined up than I can handle." He offered to teach me everything I needed to know, hands-on, if I kept helping him with jobs. He figured that in about 6 months, I'd be skilled enough to work on my own. The pay? Better than my old corporate job. And the cost of living up here? A fraction of what I was used to. That night, I called my wife one last time. She answered. I was starting to think you'd lost your mind. I wanted to let you know, I'm not coming back. Stop being dramatic. Of course you're coming back. No, I'm serious. I found work. I'm learning new skills. I'm happier than I've been in a long time. You've only been gone 2 weeks, she snapped. That's not enough time to make life-changing decisions. Your family made a life-changing decision for me when they left me out here. I'm just following through. That wasn't supposed to be the outcome, she said. You were supposed to realize how good you had it at home and appreciate us more. Instead, I realized how much better life can be without people who think abandonment is an acceptable way to teach someone a lesson. Her voice rose. We're your family. You can't just throw away years of marriage over one mistake. One mistake? You all spent 6 months planning this. You lied to me, manipulated me, talked me into trusting you. Then you left me out here like it was a joke. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. We were trying to help you, she said, almost pleading. By humiliating me? By recording my reaction for your entertainment? By treating me like a science experiment? You're blowing this way out of proportion. Am I? Let me ask you something. When you were planning this whole thing, did anyone stop and ask, what if this hurts him? Did anyone suggest that maybe abandoning your son-in-law in the wilderness wasn't funny or helpful, but just plain cruel? There was a long pause. We thought you'd be grateful, eventually, she said softly. Grateful for what? For being left behind? For being forced to discover I'm stronger than you thought? I discovered my own strength, I said, and I also discovered that I'm strong enough to walk away from people who confuse cruelty with love. Then I ended the call. For good. 3 days later, a truck pulled up outside the cabin. Through the window, I saw her father and brother get out. Both looked grim, like they were there to restore order, to fix the mess, to collect the wayward son-in-law and put everything back to normal. I stepped out onto the porch. They weren't expecting what they saw. In just 3 weeks, I'd lost weight, built muscle from physical labor, and picked up what the locals called a mountain tan. I stood straighter, looked stronger, felt clearer. You look different, her father said, unsure if it was a compliment or a concern. Clean living'll do that. Her brother stepped forward, jaw clenched. Enough games. Time to come home and face reality. I folded my arms and didn't budge from the porch. This is reality. The one where you don't get to decide what's best for me. The one where leaving someone behind isn't a family tradition. It's a betrayal. We came here to bring you back, her father said. One way or another. Oh yeah? I asked. And how exactly do you plan to do that? They looked at each other, suddenly unsure. They hadn't thought that part through. What were they going to do? Kidnap me? Drag me back like I was some rebellious teen refusing to leave summer camp? You can't stay here forever, her brother muttered. But even he didn't sound convinced. Why not? I said. I've got a job, a place to live, a community that treats me with respect. What exactly am I supposed to be missing from my old life? Silence. They had no answer. For the next 20 minutes, they stood there in my driveway, cycling through every tactic they could think of. First came the guilt trip, family obligations, loyalty, marriage vows. Then came the practical concerns. What about my apartment, my career back in the city? And finally, the not-so-subtle threats. What would happen if I didn't come to my senses? I didn't argue. I just stood on the porch, arms crossed, listening quietly while they burned through their talking points. When they were done, I said, "You guys want some coffee?" The offer threw them off more than yelling ever could. "We're not here for coffee," her father snapped. "We're here to bring you home." "And I'm here by choice," I said. "Funny how that works, huh?" They left a few minutes later, frustrated and empty-handed. I stood there and watched their truck disappear down the road, knowing this wasn't the end. People like them don't walk away easily. They don't accept rejection. Not gracefully. I was right. Over the next week, my wife called constantly, running through every emotional angle in the book. One call was tearful, the next full of rage. Then came bargaining, then more tears, then flat-out threats. She'd convinced herself I was having some sort of breakdown, and eventually, I'd snap out of it. The real twist came when she brought up therapy. "I've been talking to someone about all this," she said on one of the calls. "A therapist who specializes in relationship trauma. She thinks you might be going through a kind of reverse Stockholm syndrome." "Reverse what?" "She says you're identifying with your isolation. You're mistaking this retreat into self-sufficiency as progress, when really, it's a trauma response. We're trying to help you, and you're rejecting it." I blinked in disbelief. "You're in therapy because I got a job and started enjoying my life?" "I'm in therapy," she said tightly, "because you abandoned your family over a harmless prank." "I abandoned you?" I asked. "Let me get this straight. You all drove away and left me in the middle of nowhere. And now that I didn't collapse like you hoped, I'm the one who abandoned you?" "That was temporary. This is permanent. Don't you see the difference?" "I see it just fine. You thought I'd fail and come crawling back. I didn't. So now, you're trying to twist my success into some kind of illness." The call ended with her saying something about getting more aggressive with intervention options. I took that as a warning, a threat. The next morning, I got on the motorcycle and rode to the county courthouse in the bigger town about an hour out. I filed to establish official residency, registered to vote, and opened a local bank account. If they wanted to escalate this, I'd be ready. I also stopped by a local law office and scheduled a consultation. The attorney, a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in family law, listened to my story with raised eyebrows. "Let me get this straight," she said. "Your wife's family lured you to a remote location under false pretenses, then abandoned you as a so-called joke, and now they're threatening to intervene because you chose to stay." "That's correct." "And you've got evidence of this?" I pulled out my phone and showed her everything. The video her brother had taken of me, posted online like it was the punchline of a prank show, screenshots of the texts, voicemails, everything. She nodded slowly. "This is actually actionable," she said. "Depending on how far you want to take it, this could fall under false imprisonment, abandonment, maybe even criminal conspiracy." I wasn't looking to press charges, I just wanted legal protection, something to stop them from trying to drag me back by force. My attorney drafted a cease and desist letter and helped me create an official record confirming that I was mentally sound, acting of my own free will, and fully capable of making my own decisions. 2 weeks later, they showed up again. This time, they brought backup. 3 vehicles pulled into the driveway. Out stepped my wife, her parents, her brother, and, this was new, a social worker and what looked like a private counselor. It was a full-blown intervention. I watched from the kitchen window as they gathered outside, clearly prepared for a coordinated effort. The social worker looked uneasy, like someone who'd just realized they weren't getting the whole story. I stepped out onto the porch, documents in hand. "Quite the delegation," I said calmly. The social worker stepped forward. "Sir, I'm here because there have been concerns raised about your well-being and mental state. Your family believes you may be in some kind of crisis. Do I look like I'm in crisis? She paused, really looking at me. I was clean-shaven, dressed, healthy. The cabin behind me was tidy. My motorcycle sat in the driveway, well-maintained. Nothing about the situation screamed distress. You look fine, she admitted, but your family is very concerned about the circumstances. Let's save everyone some time, I said, handing her the papers. I'm here by choice. I'm employed. I'm mentally competent. And I have legal representation. This isn't a wellness check. It's harassment. That's when my wife stepped forward, voice sharp. You can't hide behind lawyers forever. This is our marriage. Our marriage ended, I said, the moment you and your family decided it was okay to abandon me in the woods. Everything after that? Just paperwork. Right on cue, her mother started to cry. We just wanted to help you be more independent. Mission accomplished, I said dryly. I'm so independent now, I don't need any of you. The counselor finally spoke up. Sometimes people make impulsive decisions when they're hurt. Have you considered that maybe this is an overreaction to what was, essentially, a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding, I repeated. Doctor, if someone invited you on a family trip, then left you stranded 300 miles from home as a joke, would you call that a misunderstanding? He blinked. Well, when you put it that way, that's exactly what happened. They planned this for 6 months, lied to me, set me up, filmed my reaction like it was some kind of game show. The only misunderstanding is them thinking I'd be desperate enough to come crawling back. Her brother, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, finally snapped. This is insane. You're throwing away your entire life because you can't take a joke. I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. I'm upgrading. My job here pays better. My expenses are lower. The people are real. And no one thinks emotional abuse is a fun bonding activity. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Let me tell you what's ridiculous. Driving 6 hours to harass someone who's clearly doing fine. Bringing a social worker to evaluate a healthy, working adult. And refusing to admit your little prank blew up in your face. The social worker had already turned around and was walking back to her car. I'm satisfied this gentleman is acting of his own free will and isn't in any danger, she said. This isn't a matter for social services. The counselor followed her, clearly wanting no part in the family chaos unfolding on my lawn. Now it was just me, my wife, and her family. This ends now, her father growled. You've made your point. Time to come home. Or what? I asked. You going to make it worse? We'll make things very difficult for you. I smiled. You already tried that. How'd it work out? For the first time since all of this began, I saw something in their eyes that wasn't anger, frustration, or smug superiority. It was realization. They finally understood they had no control here. They'd played their biggest card when they left me behind, thinking it would break me. But it didn't. It freed me. And now they stood on my property, in my driveway, trying to convince me to return to a life I'd already realized I didn't want. The power had shifted, and they knew it. My wife broke first. You want to know the truth? She snapped, her voice cracking. We did this because you were boring. You never took risks, never stood up for yourself, never showed a backbone. We thought if we pushed hard enough, you'd finally grow one. The air went still. Her family froze. That definitely hadn't been part of the plan. There it is, I said quietly. The real reason. Not character building. Not growth. You were embarrassed by me. Her father tried to jump in. That's not what she meant. No, I said. That's exactly what she meant. And the truth was, I used to be that guy. I used to think being quiet, agreeable, and self-sacrificing was the right way to be a husband. I thought that's what good men did. Stay silent, stay small, stay out of the way. I stepped off the porch and walked toward them. But here's what you didn't expect. When you left me out here, you didn't just test my ability to survive. You showed me exactly what you really thought of me. And more importantly, you showed me what life feels like when I stop caring what you think. We were trying to help, her mother said, her voice shaking. Help? You humiliated me. You treated me like a science project. You filmed it like it was a game show. You didn't even break down, her brother said, almost accusingly. Exactly, I said. I didn't break down. I built up. And that's what scares you, because it means your little lesson backfired completely. I motioned toward the cabin, the motorcycle, the garden I'd started, the clean tools by the shed. You came here expecting to find me wrecked, desperate, thankful for a rescue. But you found me healthy, employed, focused, and independent in a way I never was when I spent my life trying to please all of you. This isn't real independence, her father insisted. It's just hiding from responsibility. What responsibility? I challenged. Tolerating your cruelty? Pretending manipulation was love? Being grateful you abandoned me? My wife broke down crying. Not the rehearsed tears she used on the phone, but the kind that come when you realize something is gone for good. I love you, she whispered. We can work through this. People make mistakes. Some mistakes, yeah. Some you can fix. Others, they reveal who someone really is. This was the second kind. So that's it? She asked. Years of marriage, gone, because of one bad decision? One bad decision, I repeated. Try 6 months of planning, lying, manipulation, public humiliation. And still, you haven't apologized. You're just angry it didn't work. Her brother stepped forward, fists clenched. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I'm better without you. Big difference. You arrogant piece of... Careful, I cut in, my voice low and steady. You're on my property. He stopped, backed down, probably the smartest move he'd made in weeks. You want to know what I've learned out here? I said, stepping back. I learned that people will treat you exactly as badly as you allow them to. For years, I let you treat me like your project, your punchline, your background character. I thought that was normal. I thought that was family. Then I looked directly at my wife. But when you left me out here, I finally learned what respect feels like. Real respect, from people who earn it, not demand it. I'm not going back to being your family joke. We never thought of you as a joke, her mother said softly. You literally abandoned me as a prank, and recorded it. You planned it for months, I said. If that's not treating someone like a joke, then what is? The silence hung between us, heavy, final. Then her father played his last card. You'll regret this, he warned. When the novelty wears off and you realize what you've given up, you'll come crawling back, and we might not be interested in taking you back. I gave him a quiet smile. You're probably right about one thing. A few years from now, I'll look back on this moment, but I won't be thinking about what I gave up. I'll be thinking about what I escaped. They climbed back into their vehicles without another word. As they drove off, I saw my wife turn around in the back seat, watching me through the rear window, maybe expecting me to run after her, maybe hoping to see doubt in my face. Instead, I turned around and walked back into the cabin. I started prepping dinner. I had an early shift at the diner the next morning and a construction project lined up for the weekend. And for the first time in my adult life, my future belonged entirely to me. 6 months later, I bought the cabin. The previous owners had been trying to sell it for years, but its isolation scared off most buyers. For me, that was the draw. I used the money from selling my old house and car to buy it outright. No mortgage, no debt, no ties to the life I left behind. My construction business was thriving. Word spread through the nearby mountain towns about the city guy who actually knew what he was doing and didn't price gouge. I was booked out 3 months in advance, mostly for wealthy transplants fixing up their rustic getaways. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was making more money helping other people escape to the mountains than I ever made in corporate America. My phone rarely rang anymore. I'd changed my number and only shared it with clients and a few local friends. Occasionally, I'd get an email from someone in my old life, but those messages were becoming rare. Even my wife had apparently moved on. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, she told people I'd had a nervous breakdown. Let them believe that. It was simpler than explaining the truth, that their prank had been the best thing that ever happened to me. The diner owner eventually retired and offered to sell me the business. I gave it serious thought but turned it down. I liked the flexibility that construction gave me. Still, I bought the building anyway and turned it into a workshop for my tools and equipment. On the 1-year anniversary of being left behind, I threw a party. Not a bitter divorce party, not a revenge celebration, just a genuine, joyful gathering to honor freedom, independence, and new beginnings. The entire town came, bringing food, stories, laughter, real friendship, real connection. These people had accepted me without tests, without manipulation, without games. During the party, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I heard you bought a place up there. I hope you're happy." It was her. Maybe she was hoping for closure, maybe for regret. I looked around at the life I'd built, surrounded by people who valued honesty over ego, effort over image, peace over drama. I typed back, "I am." Then I deleted the number and shut off my phone. The party lasted until midnight, full of warmth and laughter and the kind of connection I'd forgotten was possible. When everyone finally left, I sat on the porch, looking up at stars I could never see in the city. They'd tried to break me with a cruel joke, tried to prove I was weak, tried to shame me into gratitude. Instead, they set me free. They revealed a strength I didn't know I had. They didn't teach me humility. They taught me to draw a line, to protect my peace, to never again let someone treat me like I was less. The best part wasn't the success, wasn't the solitude, wasn't even the peace. The best part was knowing I'd never again mistake control for love. Just 300 miles from where they'd left me behind, I'd found something they never imagined I would. I found myself. And unlike their twisted version of family loyalty, this version of me, grounded, confident, real, wasn't going anywhere.
In the end, the joke turned against them. They left, leaving behind the person who truly cared about what they thought. A person who had spent years trying to earn their approval, to be good enough, compliant, worthy. And by doing so, they created someone who no longer needs their approval. I became exactly the person they always said they wanted to see: independent, strong-willed, unbreakable. The only difference is that now I was all of this, just without them. Not all stories end with a return. Some of them begin with decisions. Like this video if this story touched you. Make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss out on any more of these incredibly deep, moving, and heartfelt stories just like this one.